Mid-November has always been a tricky time for me. The days are short, the weather gets cold, the leaves are bare. It's sort of an empty time in between all the happenings of fall and the excitement of the holiday season. I've mentioned many times in my 220 episodes thus far how difficult November is for me. Another piece of the fall that's incredibly hard on me is cross-country season. In the wake of Science Guy's death and all the emotions that brought up for me, I was also plunged back into the reality of how my entire life was identified as running. I was a runner. I coached runners. I was good at running. I read about running. I wrote about running. It was so much of who I was. The best part of coaching for me was giving to the athletes what I had been given by my coaches. This was married with the fact that I came into running because I was sleeping with a teacher. That juxtaposition of good and bad, right? I don't know how many tiny steps I am into healing about my job loss around running. I don't know that if I will ever heal. I'm 220 episodes into talking about the things in my life that have reshaped me, have sucker punched me, have made me question everything. My loss of coaching privileges in Concord was all tied into Chris Rath and Gene Connolly. And I've talked about the relationship I had with Gene prior to Chris deciding it was her job to compare my moral fortitude to his. And if you look at my boyfriend history, she has a good point. I don't think Gene Connolly cheated on his wife. However, Gene Connolly took part in horrifying treatment of teachers and professionals, not only in our district, but several others. And he and Chris Rath were a marriage made in heaven when it came to manipulating the reality of somebody to suit their needs. So when I was let go from Concord, he and Steve Mello, the AD at the time, sat me down and told me they were worried about me, that they wanted me to take a break, not come back too fast. And I remember sitting there, and this is me doing the freeze and fawn again. My patterns of dealing with like a sexual assault or an assault of any kind are to freeze, smile, and agree, which I think is like having a knife to your throat, and you're going to do whatever you're told so your throat doesn't get slashed. That's how it feels. And I nodded and smiled. I should have simply said, no, I want to keep coaching. I'll come back part-time teaching. That would have made sense. That would have made massive sense. So many things I look back on now that I should have done. And I remember suddenly being cut off from all that I had known since my sophomore year of high school. Indoor track, spring track, cross country, the first day of school, all of the things that went along with competitive running as a student and then as a coach. I remember having to bring my letter of resignation and Chris Rath's recommendation for me to Larry Martin, who was the NHIAA chair at the time for indoor track. And I was an official and I wanted to officiate. And I brought them in and I sat down and shared the whole story. And anyone who knew me knew that I just got completely screwed over by some very, very bad people. I have no trouble saying it. Don't need their names edited out. I hold fast to what happened to me. I found CrossFit, which I've also talked about. In the fall of 2014, so really just 3 years after I'd lost my job, I was hired at Bo to coach cross country. I was hired by Mr. Kaufman, a longtime wrestling coach, and I believe Bo's first AD. It was a pretty new high school. And it wasn't an easy hiring process. He interviewed me. I brought my resume in. I was pretty darn qualified. I remember the superintendent, Dean Cascadden, joked about me trying for his job because of all my qualifications. Fine. He told me that he had talked to some coaching staff from Concord High School and felt he couldn't give me the job. And I was angry. Knowing what I know about a lot of Concord employees, especially some of the coaches that I'm sure he spoke to, I was a bit mortified that they would have the audacity to paint me that way. I would think part of them would want me to coach. I was quite wrong. So he offered the job to someone else. And the day before the season was starting, she told Bo that she couldn't do it. So I get a call on a Sunday, would you coach? And of course I said yes. And the next day I show up and I begin 4 full seasons and entering my 5th season of coaching cross country at Bo High School. I was fortunate enough to work with Kaufman for 2014, 15, and 16. In 2017, the current AD, who I'll refer to as MD in this podcast, not that he deserves my respect, but I will take the high road here and just refer to him as MD. During my tenure under Mr. Kaufman, I had incredible support and understanding, which comes from somebody that's been around the block a few times. My first year, I had 13 girls on the team. And by the time he left, so 3 seasons, I was up to about 25 to 30 girls. The year I left, or was forced to leave, I had 46 girls on the bow cross-country team. If I were doing something disgusting and wrong and had that many girls around, word would get out that I was off or weird or wonky. I was most proud of the fact that Bow High School is one of the smallest high schools in the state of New Hampshire. And that fall of 2019, we were the biggest cross-country team. More girls than Londonderry, Pinkerton, Nashua, South or North. 46 girls at a high school that only had 250 girls in attendance. Mr. Kaufman would have loved this. MD was not a fan. The newspaper coverage and the way I was treated in my forced resignation from Bow was ugly and sinister and nasty. And what really has been a deciding factor for me to share what really happened to me is the treatment I get now from some people in my CrossFit and former coaching and just the general just one sort of social area that's connected to some teachers in Bow, to some folks I met through CrossFit and Concord cross country as well. Jean's daughter, who ran for me, took over as cross country coach in the wake of my departure. There were a couple of others until she came along. And what I liked right away was that she maintained several traditions and even attributed them to me as her coach when she was in high school. She did not keep the tribunes because that was far too much work for her. But she maintained some traditions that we did running up Mount Kearsarge, some ice cream and apple picking, things like this. And the circle up before the race on the starting line, where we did a recitation. I believe in myself. I believe in my team. I believe in my coach. And a whole series of things, at the end of which we would say we race. I didn't realize that some of these things she didn't really necessarily attribute to anyone but herself. But again, I did cross-country tribunes for years, and I got that practice from my high school cross-country coach, Chris Robinson. So Mr. Kaufman leaves. I have 2 seasons where we get 3rd in the state and then 2nd in the state. My goal for 2016 was to have Bow win the state title. And then Molly died. And of course, everything fell apart for me. And there were lots of changes at Bow. A couple of our good runners transferred to private school. Cross country became a double-edged sword for me then because I clung to the running community and being a part of it. And it was also just a stark reminder that my life was never going to be the same. In the fall of 2017, MB came along, MD, the new AD. And it was immediate that he did not care for me. It was just a rub the wrong way kind of thing. He was often very put out when I would ask for gates to be open. And, when we hosted cross-country meets, I did all of it. I timed both the boys and the girls. I used my own timing equipment, brought my computer and printer. I did everything. All he had to do was unlock some doors. And there were times when the visiting team would arrive and nothing was open yet. I couldn't set up. I attributed it at the time to just him getting used to coaching there. And I mean to working there. And I think some of it was that way. But he was very, very just off-put by me most of the time. Also prior to him coming, the year before Molly died, I did indoor track for free. I coached for free, Free. Our team chant was not a team because poor Mr. Kaufman felt very, very put upon that I was coaching a team that was competing in official meets. We weren't an official team where I was being paid and had a contract. I just had, 20 kids that wanted to do indoor track. Again, a big number of kids for a small school. I didn't go to the banquet, the winter track banquet, because we said we weren't a team. And then, of course, he put me in the schedule, so it made me look bad. This was prior to MD coming. So anyway, I was the indoor track coach, and we always had these coaching meetings at the end. And even with Kaufman, I remember feeling like athletes and parents had freedom to just say crappy things about the coaches. I would come off thinking things had been great. I had great relationships with families, and then I would hear that somebody thought I was mean or controlling. But, there's a saying called the Bow Parent Syndrome, which is legendary in other surrounding communities. All communities have their little monikers. In my first meeting with him, with MD, he chastised me for talking about Molly too much. Now, I need to be clear. Molly had been dead a year, not even a year and a half. Probably 10 girls on my team were close friends with Molly through theater and dance. talking about Molly was the most normal thing to do. Molly was their classmate and their teammate and their dance mate. Not talking about her would have been awkward. He claims that there were complaints. But knowing my families, and actually when everything blew up at Bo, I reached out to every family. And every family I reached out to that didn't have a problem with me wrote back. And the families that didn't write back were the 3 or 4 families that I firmly believe instigated and helped push what happened to me at Bo. So during that meeting, when he was chastising me for talking about Molly too much, that I needed to move on, I asked him, do you have any dead kids? And he got a bit put off by that. I said, well, then why don't I resign? And if you're not comfortable with me talking about my dead child and that's a precursor for me, then fire me or I'll quit. And he backed off. He backed off and apologized a bit. So then indoor track, went through, and he had a very hard time committing to transportation for us. And I can tell he just got angry about it. The number of times I drove the blue Bo van, it was like a school vehicle. I had to get permission to drive it. I drove the kids to the meets. I think back, and I remember at the time thinking, this is what I did in Concord. I put myself out there. I went above and beyond for these kids. Did I cross a line with boundaries? Not in any inappropriate way, let me be clear. But in my mind, inappropriate is close physical proximity, talking about inappropriate subjects like sex, meaning sleeping with people sex, not I'm having my period or something like that. Inviting kids to my house one-on-one or private text conversations. These things, I drew the line. I did as I was told. But looking back now, I see the similarities in how I put myself out there for kids and families in Concord and did the same thing in Bo. So after the 2018 season, it was sort of more of the same. Now, I had half again as many kids on the team. I think I had like 38 that year. And he started to get angry with me about transportation to meets. And I couldn't understand, I made hair ribbons and wrote tribunes. The feedback I got from families and teachers and community members around the growth of the program was only ever positive. And then came the 8th grade class of 2019, so the incoming freshmen of 2019. And it was a bizarre little group of girls, wonderful girls, let me be clear. 3 of the 5, I had fine conversations and relationships with their parents. But there was a set of siblings who reminded me a lot of a girl that ran for me years and years ago, Sabina. And Sabina, her dad coached her. She had her own thing. At the sports banquet, she made it to New England's. She didn't come with the team to New England's. She went with her dad. Her dad drove her down the night before. All this special treatment. And you know what? Her dad loved her, I guess, and wanted her to do well. But it totally disrupted. This wouldn't happen in a field sport. It totally disrupted my mojo. And this was the same way with these set of siblings, these incoming freshmen. They would report to me, my summer training has this, this, and this, so I will not be able to make the cross-country event of this, this, and this. And so they just absolutely didn't think that they had to give to the team in a way that I dictated. They would dictate. I was anxious for this incoming group, and I had had some warnings. So cross-country starts like at the end of August. So I have these emails that I looked up, and let me tell you, it was really, really hard to read them because I couldn't believe the things that people were saying about me. So cross country starts August 20th. And so we have our meeting, and I talk about all the girls. I talk about how I said, look, I've had a Snapchat thread because the Wi-Fi is wonky. I've tried group texts. I've tried all these different apps, and the girls don't always get them. For whatever reason, they get Snapchat. I'm happy to make a group and include parents. A couple of days after this meeting, I ran into Bill Whitmore at a store in town, and he said, you got to stop with the social media to communicate with kids. So somebody had reached out to him because he knew about this, or he golfed with somebody. I don't know. I have a hunch he golfed with this girl, Candice's dad. That's what I think. Candice is the main reason I no longer coach. Candice is a pseudonym, by the way. I had a meeting with MD. I sat down, and MD gave me the long lecture about the Snapchat and the social media, and I had changed it. So I showed him the app I had him look at it. I opened it on my phone. This is what I'm using. You're in it. So that was that. He also said that he had a couple of complaints from parents that I created a family atmosphere on the team, and that was detrimental to winning a state title. And I just looked at him like, what the hell are you? I said, well, I have 46 girls. They're all equally important to me. Look at my coaching record. When I won New England's, at Concord, I had 45 girls on that team. Like, what does the number of girls on the team have to do with my ability to focus on the better runners? But he just said, look, you need to back that off. So I said, well, I'm not going to change who I am. Have the parents reach out to me. I'm not going to communicate through you. And he just put that off. So what happened in the fall of 2019 with MD and the other administrators? So that the superintendent, Dean Cascadden, he's retired now. I'm happy to talk about him in name. The principal was Brian O'Connell then. He no longer is the principal there. And MF was the assistant principal. He's now the principal. So I'll just refer to him by initials. What happened to me in the fall of 2019 is exactly what happened to me in the fall of 2010 in Concord. Every other week, I was getting called into MD's office, or in the fall of 2010, Jean Connolly's office, with a complaint, an off-handed, weird complaint. So one of them with MD, now this is an AD of a public school with girls and boys athletes. And the complaint was that I talked about things that should only be talked about at home. And I'm like what? And he said, the girls and their periods. So this was 2019. I have a male athletic director telling me to stop talking about periods to my female athletes. I looked at him and I said, it's a health issue. They're girls. They talk to the trainer about their periods. That's sometimes the first question asked when there's a health issue. What? And he says, that's not appropriate for you to be talking. Our male coaches wouldn't talk about that. And I said, well, then you should only have females coach women or girls. It's part of their body. It's not taboo. He was just bizarre. And I asked at that time, he has a stepdaughter. Wouldn't he want her coaches to make sure she was physically healthy? And he reamed me out for pulling his personal life into mine. And I said, well, my personal life gets pulled in. And his response was, you offer your personal life. So it was nasty. And then there were comments about how close I was to some students over others. I definitely was closer to some of my runners than others. If I'd known the family for 8 years, there was a level of intimacy, appropriate intimacy, that would exist with those families. I had several traditions, all of which were very, very well documented in the cross-country books I did every year. They were all right in there, documented and all that. MB would call me into his office probably twice a week to question me about something else. So the September 11th sort of scavenger hunt where they go thank people and do good deeds. The whole district knew about this and they loved it. There was middle school staff that were in the Candice and Doug. So Candice is the runner, one of the runners that ran for me, and her dad, I'll refer to as Doug here. They had a strong connection with middle school staff, as did the twins that were on my team. And there were teachers and staff there that I feel were in some sort of little collusion together that didn't like me, because a lot of the complaints were coming from people that had connections to school board and Bo and middle school connections. So I should have just ceased conversation right there, or insisted upon knowing, or I couldn't get a union rep, but gotten some sort of legal support. But I didn't. I played nice. I jumped through hoops. I did just the same thing I did in 2010. So I had those complaints. Then the next set of complaints was that I was going to do a tie-dye t-shirt thing in my yard. I had done the tie-dye t-shirts in my yard every single year I coached at Bo. I never didn't. There's pictures of it in every book. Suddenly, this was a problem, and it was, in the words of MD, highly inappropriate to have kids at my house. Okay, the number of coaches that have pasta parties at their house is too many to count. It happens all the time. It's not inappropriate. I'm telling you that right now. I was in my yard. The only reason they came into my house was to use the bathroom. I had to do this at the high school, which I did. I did it at the high school, which was incredibly inconvenient because there's no clothes dryer for me to dry these t-shirts at the high school. I would hang them on my fence. I would take them in groups and dry them in my own dryer and fold them and bring them back the next day to the girls. But yes, this was too much of a family atmosphere. If I sound snarky, it's because I am. I did the t-shirts at the school. So that was a complaint that we could no longer do. I also used to take the girls to a hill here in Concord, right in front of Lincoln Financial, because it mimics almost exactly Dairyfield Park, which has an uphill start. Again, this is something I had done every year I had coached at Bo, including my first 2 seasons with MD. So he told me I could no longer do that was highly inappropriate, and having kids alone in my car. So that became a big thing. The only time I would ever put a child in my car was I would drive out around Bo when they were on their runs, because Bo is in the middle of nowhere, and you can't do an 8-mile run doing loops around campus. It becomes tedious. You can't build up rhythm and momentum. At any rate, if a student was sick, or whatever, I would call the school or I would text MD and say, I'm in the middle of a 3-mile run with some girls. So-and-so rolled her ankle. I've called the mother. I'm bringing her back to the school. And this became problematic. Like I should have left her there, or waited for a parent to come get their child on the side of the road. And in MD's mind, this meant I should not have my kids do distance runs out in the community. Okay. So that became an ongoing problem. So now I'm going to backtrack a bit to a girl that came onto the team as a freshman, not a runner at all. Her name is Candice. I'm calling her Candice. Candice had suffered the loss of her mother sometime in middle school. I don't remember exactly when, but it was not long, either in 7th grade or 8th grade. Losing your mother when you're a teenager is devastating. The reason she was put on my team is because everyone involved knew that I created a family atmosphere, that I created a supportive environment. School community, some of her teachers, even her dad, Doug, thought it would be good for Candice to be part of my team because she could fit in. Candice was a lot of work. She didn't want to run. She hated running. She had a back injury I have to believe that she was hurt. I can't say she was faking it. She did minimal running. She mostly did the warm-ups, and then she would cling to me and talk to me about things. So I would bring her to meets. I would have her help me with timing. I would put her in the shorter, like sort of the low-key meets, and I'd say, just get to a mile and you can stop at a mile. I went out of my way for Candice to make her feel a part of the team. As a gift for me, we had team t-shirts and they put #HeartMollyB on the back because that was just something that was the moniker for the MollyB Foundation. And a lot of kids had MollyB shirts. So apparently Bo has a rule that memorial t-shirts are not allowed, which that's probably the only high school in the history of high schools that has a rule against a memorial t-shirt. That's insane to me. That's me. But I looked up the rule, and it was more about using them to fundraise, like to push an agenda. So just having something put on a shirt that kids had the choice to buy or not, or had to pay for. So the fact was, if they had to pay for the shirt, they should be able to have one without the memorialization on it, which was not a problem for me. So I stopped doing any shirt with MollyB stuff on it through the school. I just did it through Custom Ink. I did it on my own. It was optional. The girls didn't have to buy it. Or I just bought them myself and gave them out and gave them the option of not having the MollyB stuff. Nobody asked to not have it on there. So the fall of 2019, I have complaints about where I tie-dye shirts. I'm told not to talk about periods. I'm told that my family orientation isn't going to focus on the good runners enough, that I need to stop that my team is too big. I need to learn to leave kids back, that not everybody should go to all the meets. All of these complaints were just off-putting and off, which is how I felt in 2010. When I would get complaints about things that I realized I had a teacher's aide in my class that was watching me behind a newspaper. And the complaints he made were accurate enough to be believed, but not exactly what was happening. And that's how I felt about all of this. I'm being too intimate with the kids. Oh, okay. So I introduced Candice to Gracie because Candice lost her mother and Gracie lost her sister. And Gracie took her in. And when I say took her in, Gracie was a senior the first year that Candice ran. So it was an appropriate age thing. And oh my gosh. Candice relied on Gracie a ton. Gracie came to meets just to sit with Candice. I have pictures of them on the bus. She really just took her under her wing. This was a year-long thing. Cross-country season ended and Gracie and Candice maintained contact. I remember Gracie being at the beach in the summer of 2019 and running into Candice and her brother. And they were so happy to see her. And oh my God, and it was this big thing. And then I went up a couple days later and saw them as well on the beach. And it was decided at that time that Candice was not going to run cross country. And what I said to her was, that is the right choice. You don't like running. It was a great way for you to become a part of high school. I agree, don't. This is where I think the planning took place because all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, Candice is running. And I believe it's connected to the staff and the parents of the twins and those families that did not like me. It was clear. Neither of those girls would look me in the eye. They wouldn't smile at me. They wouldn't laugh at a joke. They had no interaction with me. They just stood. They wouldn't communicate. They had a friend of theirs, a third friend I'll call Susan. And she didn't know what to do. You could see that she felt very much in the middle. She wanted to enjoy the fun and all the other things that were going on, but she didn't know what to do. Regardless, we did a lot of drills and strides and training and strength and mobility and everything. And we were just starting to get into the hard workouts. And Manchester Invitational comes. This was September 21st, which was a Saturday that year. Those freshman girls won the freshman race. Teeny tiny Bo and 5 little freshmen won the freshman race. I missed the award ceremony because I was so worried about Candice in the JV race that I was off tending to her. She stopped at a mile. She was having an asthma attack. She'd gotten a couple of other runners to go get an inhaler. The number of people taking care of her was overwhelming. So I cared for her. I said, I need to go to the awards. She didn't want me to leave her side. So I walked her back to the blanket and I missed it. I missed my team that I could have stood on stage with because I was tending to Candice. I had to leave. That was a day I had to bring Gracie down to Connecticut. All of this stuff was going on. It was very, very hectic. And I had to arrange bus transportation for everybody. And Candice wanted to leave early. And she got permission from her dad to go home early. And I said, yes, that's fine. You can go home early. And she sent me a text message that basically said, thank you so much for how well you took care of me today. You're like my second mother. And you always understand when I just need quiet. I'm just going to spend the day at home. Thank you. That was Saturday. Sunday, I was timing a road race that MB's wife ran. MB's wife used to be a good friend of mine. So I was timing the race. So I saw him down there. So I went over. We talked about how great they did. He asked how I was doing. I said, I'm doing okay. In the meantime now, I've had brain tumors taken out of my head. Kenny's having kidney biopsies. Like all of these things are happening in my life. And he seems to be supportive. I was getting a 25-year NHIAA recognition, which I had reminded him I had earned, and I forgot all about it because I was so wrapped up in Kenny that I didn't go. So he went and I didn't, and that really angered him. I know that Kaufman would have been much more understanding because I think he saw the bigger picture. I was just a thorn in MD's side. I just really was. So Sunday, that afternoon, I get this tattoo, and if you're watching, you can see it. It's on my arm right here. And here I'm flexing as I show the tattoo, and I took a picture of this, and it's my arm flexed just like this, a selfie. I got the tattoo on September 22nd. And when I got home, I sent pictures of it to 5 or 6 of my runners and MD, the athletic director, and the athletic trainer, and I believe the superintendent. And I said, I'm sending this out so that you know I'm not just sending it to kids. I believe I sent it to a group chat. Some of those things on my phone didn't survive the update, and I would have had to dig out my old phone. But what I could find was that I certainly didn't send it just to Candice. Candice wrote back and said, oh my God, that's beautiful. And we talked about the tattoo. We had had a whole conversation with a group of girls at practice about tattoos. And I had talked about how I wanted to get one. And I wanted a Rachel Molly one. And we had done a hashtag for Candice's mother. We had also done a hashtag for another girl who had lost her mother. So we had 2 different hashtags for 2 different moms that had passed away with girls on the team. In my conversation with Candice, I mentioned that I would get a tattoo in honor of her mother on my foot maybe, or something like that because of running and all this. And she wrote back and she said, please don't take this the wrong way, but I feel like that's crossing a line and it's too, you didn't know her. I think my dad would be pissed. It would be really hard. So I said, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to make you uncomfortable. Of course not. I'm sorry. I'll let this calm down. I apologize. That was it. That was my conversation with Candice. Candice didn't come to practice Monday. She didn't come to practice Tuesday. So I reached out on my way to dance. Hey, Candice, are you okay? And I remember her sending me a picture of herself and she was furious. She's in a dark room and she looks all upset and angry. And I was just horrified, like, oh my gosh, like what's wrong? And then I get a message the next day from MD. I'm doing hair ribbons. I'm getting all these things ready for the meet. I have to go and pick up food. We did the South Ender food thing. Like I had to go get all the food, Simo's it was then, food and everything. And he goes, well, just stop in before the meet. So I stop in with all my stuff. I'm like, what's up? And it's this big meeting with the principal and him. And they basically say, we're suspending you because we got an email from a student. And so I see out of the corner of my eye the picture of the tattoo. So I realize it's Candice. I sent them the picture and I'm like, I see it. It's Candice. I sent you all that. If she's not going to the meet, why can't I not be with my team? They completely pull me back and they tell me that I can't not to talk to anyone on the team until they've done their investigation and that the complaints were, well, I'm going to read you the letter. This is what was said to me about the tattoo email that I sent with the picture. So let me also be clear. Some of the families of the girls on my team were good friends of mine. So to not talk to them was completely impossible. So here's the first email that Dean Cascadden sends. Now, the reason I have this is I had an entire group of parents put together a private Facebook page. They all wrote letters to the Department of Ed complaining about what was happening to me. I had incredible support. I also had incredible support from the DOE, which I'll get to. So this is what they write. Hello, parents of the BHS girls cross country team. The district has received multiple concerns regarding the girls' cross-country team this fall. I've listed them: family, periods, whatever. These concerns center around maintaining appropriate adult to student emotional boundaries. Right. So I'm too friendly, I'm too kind, I'm too supportive. Now I'm too much of a second mother to Candice. And I agree. I spent hours, and Gracie spent hours nurturing her for 2 years. As of today at 2 o'clock, we have removed Barbara Higgins from participating with the team so that we can do a thorough investigation of the concerns and then take appropriate action if needed. We have discussed this with the girls on the team prior to them going on the bus to today's meet. We have directed the coach to not have contact with the players, families, or school employees while we do the investigation. And we have communicated that to the runners also. We ask that players and families not have communication with the coach during this time. We hope to complete the process soon, but it may not be completed until sometime next week. MD, the athletic director, is making arrangements for coverage, and that will be communicated to you. Mr. O'Connell and I plan to go to the meet today and are willing to answer questions. If you have any concerns, please direct them to me or Principal O'Connell. I sent a picture to 3 adults, a bunch of parents, and a bunch of students. And one student who took hours of my time at the request, really, of the Bow community her freshman year. Now it was too much. I was being too nice. So that was the day that it happened. So the next day, a day later, this is what the principal sends. I would like to start by providing an update on how we are going to support our girls' cross-country team over the next few days in regard to practices and meets. Our AD, MD, will get the current training regimens from Coach Higgins so the girls can continue to prepare for their meets. Our assistant principal, MF, who has previously coached cross-country, will be assisting at practice and traveling with the team for their meet at Co-Brown on Saturday. Coach KM of the boys team, Katie McDonald, will be reaching out to some other coaches who are familiar with our team and the athletes to see if they are available to provide support. Let it be clear, I chose the coach to provide support. She is incredibly connected to a handful of people that are connected to Bo that no longer talk to me. We'll get to that. As Dr. Cascadden mentioned in his email yesterday, we are investigating concerns related to the girls' cross-country team. I would like to interview each of the girls on the team to get their perspectives on a number of different issues. Because of the nature of what we are investigating, emotional boundaries, I would like to offer parents the opportunity to be present when I talk to their student. If a parent is unable to be present or does not feel they need to be present, I will be having each girl's school counselor sit in on the interview to provide support. If a student does not feel comfortable being interviewed, they do not have to participate. My plan is to take the remainder of this week to fact find, gather relevant information, and formulate interview questions for students and adults. I would like to interview students, blah, 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 blah. I want to invite any parents to share with me privately via email, phone, or in person any feedback, thoughts, and concerns. Let me reiterate. The complaints were that I was too friendly, that I created a family atmosphere, that I talked about periods, which is a health issue, and that I offered support to a child who had lost their mother. I believe these complaints were generated from a couple of school board members in Bow and a couple of parents from the middle school that didn't like me. I know it, and I'll tell you why after that. Now, about a week later, I'm still not coaching. I never went back. Those poor girls, those 4-year seniors never got their collages and all the things that I did for those kids. I wasn't allowed to do. I was just cut off at the knees. So now, October 4th, so now it's been a couple of weeks since I've not been coaching, and I realize there's 2 weeks left of the season and I'm not coming back. The principal writes this letter to parents. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I know the uncertainty of last week and a half has been extremely challenging. I want to thank you for your understanding and patience as we have processed the concerns that were raised and have worked toward resolving a challenging situation for many different parties. These types of situations are not easy, and it is critical we allow all parties to feel valued, supported, and heard. I was not valued, supported, or heard. Let me be clear. Thank you to all the student athletes who sat with me for an interview. I truly appreciate it. 30 athletes sat down out of the 46. And I would say probably 6 or 7 were freshmen whose parents probably didn't want them involved. And I'm not sure about the others. Our initial hope was to have our investigation completed by today. But due to the complexity of the issue at hand and the amount of information we have gathered, we have to extend it another week. As a result of extending our invitation, we will be taking an additional step to support the team. Beginning Monday, Sarah Krause, one of the winter track coaches, will be taking over coaching responsibilities until the investigation is complete. I'm the one that suggested Sarah because Sarah had done indoor with me and we worked really well together, or so I thought. Sarah works at the middle school, which is where a woman I know from CrossFit works. And I know that when this all went down, suddenly this woman completely cut me off. That was the 3rd email. So I had these amazing parents that sent these to me. So then finally, on October 22nd, the season's almost over now. There's the next email. We are remiss in not having updated the team and the parents regarding BHS girls cross country coaching situation. We will attempt to be as transparent as possible. Mr. O'Connell completed his investigation on October 7th and forwarded it to me for deliberation and possible action. This is Dean Cascadden now. It was at times difficult to discuss some of the issues. There were many positive aspects of the team and the coach that were shared in the process. There were also some policy concerns around communication methods, so that's social media or texting, transportation, that would be me driving the puking kid off, the course, and memorialization, the MollyB shirts that the kids actually made for me. However, there was one specific concern that is still under review centering around mentoring, maintaining appropriate adult to student emotional boundaries. The district is consulting with the NHDOE about this concern. This was about my support of Candice and her dead mother and putting my daughter Gracie on the line for her and the hours and hours and hours that they spent together. Now, let me be clear. There were times I invited Candice to come pat puppies once and sent her a text and said, make sure your dad says this is okay. She would come hang out at indoor track practices sometimes when I was coaching. I would touch base with Candice's dad all the time. It became inappropriate. I look back on it now and it's just so obvious, but I don't stand up for myself well. I had to go to the DOE because I hold a teaching certificate. And the DOE, the two attorneys, I'll call Rich and Diana, they were in charge of all these things, these violations of ethics and this and that. The day that they had me in to discuss these complaints is the day they appointed me to be the director of Capital City Charter School. And they apologized profusely for what had happened to me. They were horrified and disgusted, quite frankly. When they took off their official hats, Rich was great. And he goes, I'm going to make believe I'm Candice's dad. And I'm reading all these messages from a coach that I don't really know. So I corrected him and I said, oh no, he knew me. I printed off the entire text threads that I had with Doug, which I'll read some to you because it was horrifying. At this time, I remained on suspension. So of course the season was over, so I never went back. They finished their whole season. They never went back. I found out at the banquet, like the captains always do the awards and the presents for the coach and everything. And that little group of freshmen, those two sisters, went out and bought presents for Sarah, the woman that took over for me. Like they just sort of absconded the whole awards night and did all these things that weren't done by the seniors who did it. And it was really, really uncomfortable. It was incredibly uncomfortable. Also, Candice went to the school-wide awards ceremony and the whole team they were devastated. It was devastating. I also want to say during this time, one of my seniors was running the Manchester City Marathon as her senior project. And I was her mentor, and I was allowed to continue to be her mentor. I was allowed to come on school property and go to events around that, to go to meetings. This was deemed fine. So talk about, a close relationship, but I wasn't allowed to coach cross country. At the Manchester City Marathon, when Kate was running, we posted a bunch of pictures. And so I would say 10 girls that were on the team drove to Manchester to cheer with Kate and to see me. Oh, the hugs and the hugs and the hugs. They were profound. It was pretty incredible. Two things happened during the fall that went along with this situation that angered me. I asked for help a million times around Candice and her dad and how inappropriate he was with me and how I was afraid of him. So I'm going to read the text thread that I shared with Doug all through the fall. So remember, Candice wasn't going to run. Candice swallowed up my time in ways I can't even wrap my head around. My first text from him is August 23rd. Hi, Barb. This is Doug. So I said, thank you. So he's introducing himself. Just heard from Candice. This is September 3rd now, our first meet. Just heard from Candice that she's not running at today's meet. What's up? So I write back, if she wants to run, I'm happy to have her run. I have a group that I just don't feel are physically ready. So she is not the only one not running. If she's upset with me, let her know I was trying to ease her in so that she'll feel successful and be finishing the season, being able to run the 5K. I'm planning on racing her Saturday. So he writes back and says, she was expecting to run today. She's just surprised to be hearing about it now. I would prefer her to run and not ease her in. She's ready to be pushed and for you to expect more from her. She definitely wants to run today. Let me be clear. She did not want to run. So she was playing us against each other, which I started to realize right away. And I went to MD for help. So I wrote back and said, we talked about it at practice yesterday, and I have not yet reconnected with her. I will definitely run her if she's willing. He writes, okay, she will be excited. That night, why didn't Candice run today? Thought we agreed she would. So I wrote back and said she did not want to run at all. She said she wasn't feeling well. We went round and around about it. I told her that you were expecting her to run, that you said she wanted to run. She's excited for Saturday and promised she wouldn't try to get out of it. Ultimately, I left it up to her. I'm the coach. He writes back and says, that's disappointing. Can I ask if you can be firmer with her? RE expectations, goal setting, and pushing herself. I, along with Beth Corkum on the academic side, are working with Cadence to develop skills to tackle hard situations, initial failure, fear of failure, accomplishing tasks that are not pleasant, being relentless and gritty. Also, wanting her to find her own confidence in voice and persona and break out of the image many have cast on her as the girl who lost her mom. Looking for her with help to step out of any victim mentality. Realize it's a balancing act, but feel she's ready for coaches and teachers to push her out of her comfort zone. Appreciate your support. I agree with all of this, but I'm the coach, and there's a million reasons kids do or don't run. She was also incredibly manipulative at playing me against her dad, and that's not uncommon in trauma. So I wrote back and said, yes, my trouble with today was I had not planned on starting her until Saturday. So she had wiggle room. She is already doing way more than she was doing last year. So then he writes back that night and says, okay, we had a heart to heart. She won't be taking advantage of wiggle room or making excuses. She's doing more than last year, but that's a pretty low bar. So he's just unwilling to give her anything right now. This isn't about being a great runner. It's about life lessons and tackling challenges without fear. Like, okay. So I wrote, exactly. She runs every day and has participated in practice. This is 100% better than last year. And he writes back and said, great. Talk to her a lot about trying to improve just a little bit every day. So I write back, you're a good dad. And then he gives me a smiley face. September 9th. Our meet on September 9th was away. I put Cadence with a group of kids and she ran the whole race. I was so effing proud of her. It wasn't an easy course. I put her with a group and I told that whole group to run together. They sang, they held hands, they ran the whole way. People on the sidelines thought it was wonderful. Her dad was so furious with her that he left her at the meet. He left her there. And her dad's girlfriend screamed at her in front of a whole bunch of people, just yelled at her. So she came home on the bus sobbing, like uncontrollably sobbing. I was dumbfounded. That afternoon, I get a message. After giving her the opportunity to quit cross country, Cadence has decided to stay on the team and take things more seriously. She and I have an agreement that she's to try her best to run the best of her ability each race or she will no longer be on the team. To that end, I encourage you to coach her to run her own race and not team up with girls at the back of the pack. He's telling me how to coach now. Definitely no more holding hands and blowing kisses, barely out of breath because you jogged 3 miles. So he missed the whole point of this. He's not the coach. Now she creates a family atmosphere. She's not a good coach. I realize these complaints are coming from him, from Doug. All the connections he has with the middle school because Cadence was very connected to that staff. She now understands anything worth doing is worth taking seriously and giving it your all. Please help me by laying down the law and encouraging, pushing her forward. Thanks. So I wrote back about an hour later and said, Cadence had 1 race last year in 40 minutes. Her goal for this race, coming from me as her coach, was to finish the race. It was my idea that she run with those girls because I wanted her to finish and not walk. I will move her up a group next time. I put all the girls together with people that run to their ability. There is a group ahead that Cadence can run with next time. The goal being to be further up and further up. Cross country is a very important part of Cadence's day, and she contributes a lot to the team. Please let me coach her. I have not let her sit at practice once. Compared to last year, she is miles ahead. I would hate to think that you being unhappy about her race would cause you to pull her from the team. Her time Saturday was 7 minutes faster than the 1 race she ran last year. I feel good about where she is, and I know she can do better. I ask that you work with me too. Together we can bring out the best. He heard none of this. She was not taking it seriously. She will not be on the team if she doesn't put out her best effort. Saturday was not her best effort. All I am asking is not to baby her or showcase her as a lesser athlete than anyone else on the team. The decision to be on the team is hers under one condition. If she's on the team, she tries her best every day. She did not do that on Saturday. In hindsight, I should have said, I need you not to be on the team anymore, and had a meeting because when I showed this whole email thread to MD, the athletic director, he did nothing to help me. Nothing. So I just wrote. I kept responding. She had a good run today. We looked at the race results and the group in front of her was 3 minutes faster. She's going to try starting with that group next week. I'm doing everything he says. Then he says, this is not about results. It's just effort. Well, it is about the result to him. 7-minute improvement wasn't enough. Okay. So I said, we're good. He thumbs up. So I went to MD after this and said, can you read this? I'm really nervous. And I also said to Cadence, look, I feel like you're playing me. because you tell me one thing and your dad tells me something else and we communicate. So my dad communicates with you? And I said, yes. Now, as a coach, I'm not going to hide anything. This is the thing. 10 o'clock that night, 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, I believe, I get a text message from Cadence's dad. Can you help me understand why you shared our text with MD and told Cadence about it? 10 o'clock at night, he's texting me about this. I should have ignored it. I respond back. I wasn't sure how to react. I wanted advice. I go to MD for help quite often. I also want to respect Cadence and you equally. And I wanted to have an honest discussion with Cadence. You and I are going to be working together. I wanted to eliminate the playing us against each other potential. I was wanting to keep this transparent. I hope you're not upset with me. I'm really invested in Cadence and with you. So he says to me, this is 10 o'clock on a Saturday night now. Totally your call on how to handle your situations. Don't agree with you sharing adult conversations with Cadence. I work hard at steering her away from drama and not have her involved in more adult stuff than necessary. If you have any questions or concerns with what I'm trying to get across to Caden, call me. I will, and please accept my apologies. So again, I own it. I just wanted to lay the ground rules openly. Your words were powerful. I also did not realize that our conversations were private. So he just writes, thanks. Me being me, I ask him, are we okay? Is everything okay? So this is the first 2 weeks of practice. I'm going through this with Cadence's dad. This is taking up my time, not coaching the top 7 runners on my team. Yes, if you help Cadence focus on her commitment to try her best every day, we are fine. We have a meet a few days later. Cadence improved 2.5 minutes from last week and absolutely flew to the finish. Her second half was way better than her first. I think we're on our way. That's great. Thank you for being a good dad. That was it. That was September 14th. So it was 10 days later that she's suddenly afraid of me because of my tattoo. I reached out to MD also for help. Okay, so my whole MD experience with 2019 was in June when he asks me if I'm planning on coaching in the spring. Yeah, why wouldn't I? So August 20th, right after the meeting, the coaches meeting, the athletes coaches meeting. Hey, Barb, still have a few things in my office for you to pick up. We also need to discuss using Snapchat as your means of communication. So I respond back. I've actually switched to email and will not be using Snapchat at all. Too much going on in the world to give people a reason to wonder about the adults working with kids. So I'm already on it. I already know that something's up because the complaint I got was what MD had said to me was that a couple of school board members from Bow were concerned that me as a school board member would be using Snapchat to communicate with kids. So I went to some messaging app that coaches were asked to use at Bow. So I switched to it. So then I came in and signed my contract, but you weren't there. I will do a text thread that includes girls and parents. And he said, that was exactly my concern, and that a couple of parents as well. I know you had signed, but I have coach's handbook and other things to go through. So I tell him about my brain check and all this kind of stuff. And he says, okay, I hope it goes well and that your brain is still in there. There are concerns. It isn't the best means of communication. This is, again, Snapchat. We are better served with group communication that keeps a trail. So I will do. Stay away from personal communication. Will do. So August 27th, I sent him an email, which I cannot find. And so I don't know if they have the ability to delete it from their server or what. I could not find the email, but it was a defensive email. I sent an email to families, which I'll read in a minute, but I believe I sent an email to him that was angry, calling out what I was doing. So I apologize for my email. As I reread it, it sounds angry. I am mostly hurt and sad and doing a bit of crying right now. Had you sat in the room and listened to what I said, you would find the complaints as insulting as I do. So it must have been after the coaches meeting and what I had said and how they were being misinterpreted to MD. Then I bring up a couple of student things. So he writes, I will respond to email, but don't ever bring my personal life into this again. So I clearly in an email brought in personal, how would his stepdaughter feel about this or that, or as a dad, how would he feel? And I said, I won't, but mine is being brought in because it was talking about Molly. Your being this upset shows me I'm not wrong to feel the way I feel. It's personal against me. I apologize. His response to me was, you brought yours in. Mine is kept apart from my professional life. This has nothing to do with my family and it will not be discussed further. So on August 30th, we have another issue with cars. Kids can drive to practice. They drive to school to practice. If practice is being held at a remote location, parents simply need to know and they need to give permission for their kids to either drive with other kids or get a ride there, just like they would at school. So in this, I'm like, Susie's dad is driving 4 freshmen. Everyone else is evenly spaced and we are headed to St. Paul's. That's where we run a lot. Let me know if I need to write up some sort of permission form in the future. We have 3 other things that we are likely to do. Thank you for your patience. Here I am working with him. This is August 30th. You will definitely need permission forms. I'll talk to Dean about it. So I said, I have had tremendous support over the years from parents around these particular trips, even the parents that don't care for me so much. And if I have parents' dads willing to drive and Susie's dad is willing to drive any time, I will list the 4 things we typically drive to so that we can talk to Dean and figure out what needs to happen. So then I write about tie-dyeing shirts. Monday is tie-dye shirt day. There was no school that day, so it was logical to do it at my house in the afternoon. I wanted to host practice at my house. We could do the hill repeats. They can get a ride from their parents or drive, and then tie-dye on the lawn. So I tell them the whole thing. We run at White's Park. We do drills and strides. We do hill repeats. Then they go home, and I take care of the shirts. So this is what he writes back. The concerns that will come up in terms of policy and liability will be transporting kids in your personal car, and most definitely having them at your house, along with any social media connections through personal accounts. I don't know what else to tell you. So I'm like, I brought nobody in my car. He stopped responding too much after that. I do the t-shirts at the school. I have a key to get into the school, but I don't know the security code. We're tie-dyeing shirts today, so I need to have access to water. Nobody was there. So I list everything I'm going to do with tie-dyeing shirts at an empty school, which was fine. That was September 2nd. So September 9th is when I have the whole altercation with Candice's dad, and I ask for help. Like, come on, help me. September 11th, we always do this special scavenger hunt where they sing and they do these beautiful things. Here's his complaint. Girls cross country came into Bow Middle School as part of their scavenger hunt. So this was a complaint from Bow Middle School. And we're talking through halls as teachers were in a meeting. Diane asked them to leave because they were taking magnets and name tags that were out for open house tonight. She wanted me to let you know. They're outside with chalk on the sidewalk now, which is fine, but she didn't see why they needed to be in the school. So I responded, for the 5th year in a row, part of the hunt is to find a teacher from the middle school and thank them. I went to the main office today to let them know it was 9/11 hunt day and the girls would be coming. They were pre-warned. Just sending you what was sent. Sounds like they were doing more than they should have been, that's all. So I said, okay, clearly this is my year for complaints, I guess. So then he says, if the girls are moving things that are in place for open house, BMS has the right to say something about it. He's just being a jerk. He's just being a jerk. He can't acknowledge they were doing a good thing. So I said, I'll follow through. Thank you. And he said, thank you to me. So I write back. The group that was spoken to was honest and open with me. It was a group of really good kids, and they admitted they were loud and were asked to go outside, but they denied moving any furniture or touching or disrupting anything like that. None of the other groups had any idea what I was talking about. So I reminded them that we are always guests in other people's facilities. Having said that, I've had several messages complimenting me about the girls today and their behavior, as well as their wishes on this terrible day. He doesn't respond to that. I messaged him because it was a Saturday, we had a meet, and I said, I unlocked the school so we could get water before we leave for the meet, and the code, I didn't know the code, so the alarm went off. So I tell him this, and the police had to come. So then I send him September 21st, my last day coaching a meet, my last meet. I send him a picture of the freshman team that won the team title at the Manchester Invitational. Huge for a teeny tiny school like Bow, ridiculously huge. The fact that they didn't win a state title with these 5 freshmen in 2019 is on MD and Dean Cascadden and Cadence and her dad. They are the reason why these 7 girls I'm looking at, 5 of the 7 didn't get to hold a state title plaque 3 months later or 6 weeks later. They would have. 5 in the top 26. It was amazing. So he says, wow, yay, and all that. So then it's just, we're confirmed for a meet on Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. We'll have a sports bus, blah, blah, blah. So then he says, can you come in today for a meeting at 2:00? I said, I'm busy getting simos and running around like a crazy woman for the meet. Is this about so-and-so? Because we had another athlete. And he goes, no, it's not about so-and-so. And then I message him I'm really struggling. Like, what's going on here? Like, I wouldn't want Cadence to be hurt. I don't understand this. Why did 30 girls have to suffer for this? I'm getting texts from parents who know what is happening. I haven't responded. What do they think? He's like, you just have to let it play out. Do not communicate with anybody. So I was just cut off. All I did was love somebody. All I did was send a picture of a tattoo to several adults and several kids. That's it. So I thank him for responding, and he says, no problem. And then the next day, he wants to have me continue coaching, like collect training plans and everything. I send him everything. I emailed him daily all spring. So he thanks me for these things. I'm sending him things. I sign them up for meets. I do all of this as the days go along. September 30th comes. Now it's been, a week. We should have an idea of what's happening. Trust the process. I didn't trust the process. The process was terrible. Here's what happened next. I got a letter in the mail with no return address, mailed to my house, snail mail. And it was sent to several people. So this came in the mail. I immediately forwarded it to Bo because I thought I was saying, look what's happening to me because of this. Look what your people are doing to me. They used this letter as a reason for me to not coach and for them to not rehire me. So I'm going to read you the letter. Meanwhile, this is when all the Howie Young stuff is happening in Concord, an actual reason to keep a teacher away from students. So this is how I feel about the whole thing. You have a sexual predator that people had concerns about that was allowed to continue teaching. And I helped a student deal with her dead mother, did fun activities with my athletes, and gave them permission to be open and honest about their lives. And I'm some bad person. So all members of the Concord School Board, a woman named Darlene, Tony Chanella from Patch, the editor of the Concord Monitor, Steve Leone, and acting superintendent Donna Pally. So they're sent to everybody. Darlene is like very, very active in holding teachers accountable. She immediately took my side. She thought this was disgusting, utterly disgusting. And I was so afraid that she would just believe it and hate me. All my school board members got this. They also sent it to the entire Concord City Council and to the chief of police in Concord and to the mayor. I will say none of these people even responded to me about it. Well, the Concord Monitor did a horrible article because that's the Concord Monitor. Tony did an article on Patch. You can Google both of these articles. That was very supportive of me, very truthful. We feel it essential that you are aware that Ms. Barbara Higgins was recently relieved of her duties as the Bow girls cross country coach. I hadn't been relieved yet. This occurred mid-season after a school district investigation involving numerous interviews of Bow students. The interviews kept my job, really. We commend Bow's administration for their decisive actions. As you know, Ms. Higgins is a Concord School Board member. As we piece together numerous incidents, it is evident that Ms. Higgins repeatedly displayed no respect for professional and personal boundaries with our children. Odd events like bringing the team to her daughter's grave certainly got our attention. Half the kids on my team knew Molly. They wanted to see it. They weren't put off by it at all. One specific incident centered on a student athlete who is still grieving her mother's recent passing stand out as the breaking point for our community. So this incident involves Cadence. Miss Higgins ignored every decency boundary by apparently suggesting via direct one-to-one social media communication that she was intending to get a tattoo to honor the student's deceased mother. I made the comment. Wouldn't that be nice? The minute it upset Cadence, I took it back. It was a stupid thing to say, and I do regret that. But our conversation after that, Cadence was fine. Thank you. You understand me. You get me. So this comes from Cadence's dad, from Doug. So all of this comes from Doug because he identifies himself in this letter by bringing up that, because nobody knew that. This wasn't public knowledge. Whoever wrote this letter knew of that, and that would be Cadence and Doug. We cannot speak for Bow administration, but our community feels that this was offered in order to solidify the student's loyalty to Ms. Higgins and her methods. We would consider this grooming or at least manipulation of a minor. We take heed in that the student firmly rejected Ms. Higgins' outlandish proposition. She also reported it. She didn't indicate to me that she wanted to report it. She was worried that her dad would be mad. She was freaked out. So my opinion is that her dad saw it. As we follow the case in Concord, especially over the past stretch, it seems grossly ironic and even sickening to us that Ms. Higgins is judging others, including those who are tasked with responding to these types of unethical behaviors. They're trying to compare me to Howie Young. We cannot, in our wildest dreams, imagine her being impartial given her previous public responses to anyone questioning her methods. With the climate as it is, we struggled with the act of coming forward and therefore apologize for the vagueness of not presenting our identity at this time. Regardless, you can be 100% confident that with the slightest of scratches on the surface of this situation, all of our claims will be easily substantiated, and without doubt, a few more will emerge. We believe Ms. Higgins in her current state is a liability to the child-centered community in which she participates. She should certainly not be judging others from the position of power, elected or not. Regards, concerned Bow parents. This was clearly from Cadence's family, and my feeling is I was going to be reinstated because 30 families said no problem, that we're ready for this. And then this letter gets sent. Now this has to go to the Department of Education. I know that this is probably a disjointed episode. I'm sharing this because this kind of stuff happens to people all the time. Was I without fault in all of this? Oh, heck no. I draw the line on boundaries, but am I inappropriate? No. This dad, Cadence's dad, had no trouble one-on-one texting me and telling me how to coach his daughter and belittling me and berating me and then being mad when I shared these things. And then in the next breath tells me I'm having all this personal one-on-one relationship and I'm trying to bribe her by offering this tattoo. No, it was a foolish thing to say and I regret it 100%. And my response My immediate response was as follows. So I send Cadence a tattoo. I send that whole picture in the group chat so everyone gets it. She texts me back just alone. So should I not have responded? You're right, I shouldn't have. I have several text threads with her that, what time do we have to be at school for the meet? 7 o'clock. Oh my God, that's so early. So I offered to bring a coffee. So should I have brought her a coffee? No. But I brought other girls coffee sometimes as well. But yeah, I stepped over the line. I brought her a coffee. So she tells me what she wants and that she wants a bagel and all this. So Gracie would come, and Gracie sometimes would bring her coffee and bagel. So I told her I loved her. I'm not your mom, but I will always treat you like a daughter. So her dad read all this and didn't like it. I love you, Cadence. I'm not your mom, but I'll always treat you like a daughter. So then somebody's supposed to bring her home and nobody can find Cadence. And so this girl is waiting and waiting and waiting to see if Cadence needs a ride. She doesn't. Then she tells me she's going to skip practice. I say, team pictures of today, stay for pictures, then go home. She goes, I'm already home. I said, okay, fine. Then we have the meet where I missed the award ceremony because I'm tending to her because she drops out of the race at the mile. I don't watch any of the other JV kids. I'm tending to her. I put her first. So yeah, I crossed the line. So then she says, thank you for letting me go home early. I feel a lot better, safe in my bed. I know you do. I can't bring your mom back or fix what makes you sad, but I can take care of you now. And she said, thank you. Then I send her in the group chat the picture of the tattoo. That's it. My arm. She writes, that's awesome. So I write, I'm so pumped. And then she says, is it on you? And I said, yes, on my arm. That's so awesome. So then I said, I could be getting an orange blank tattoo on the top of my foot. And she says, I'm not sure how to say this, and I think it's such a nice gesture and appreciate you thinking of my family so much, but I think it's maybe best if you didn't get my mom's name or anything about her tattooed. I feel like it might be different if you're really close with her, but I don't know. I totally understand that you're showing how much you care for me and my family, but I don't think it would sit well with my dad. So I said, thank you for being so honest with me. I won't, and I will never do anything that would upset you. I will hold off on any future conversations about this. And then I'm accused of bribing her. These are I have the texts. They're all right here. I don't get hired back. The season ends. Yes, I get to be with the girl who ran the marathon. I had that amazing meeting with the Department of Ed, which doesn't happen until, December. And I'm asked to take over the middle school, the charter school. And then I have my meeting with MD and Dean Cascadden. And they basically say, we're going to go in a different direction. We don't want you to come back. They make me drive all the way to Bow to tell me that. They could have just sent me a letter. So I was angry and heartbroken. I just felt frustrated. Like, what the heck? I will say they have not won a state title and their teams are small. I'm sure they're having fun. I know that in the years immediately following, I knew some of the coaches. I'm not going to criticize any current coach now, but I look at Concord the same way. Am I the world's greatest coach? No, but I had huge teams. I had teams where girls that would never do a sport would come out and run. So I get massive amounts of communication from former runners all the time. And they sometimes they're heart-wrenching for me. So I got 2 just in the last couple of days. Here's one from a girl named Sarah, who I haven't spoken to in years. And she said, hi, Barb. I'm a former CHSXC runner of yours, class of 96. I just wanted to share. My 2 children have run XC, and my daughter just completed her middle school and is planning to run in high school. She loves it. I remember the little note she wrote us after meets, and so I created similar ones for her this past season. I really think it helped her. I was just grateful for your inspiration and wanted you to know. So I thank her. I remember you quite well, Sarah. I love that your kids are running and that it brings back good memories. One of the best parts of the years I coached was watching all of you grow up and have kids and continue the traditions. And I mentioned that I like that she continues the tribunes, which I also did in Bow, by the way. Yes, the tribunes, special times for sure. Then I have a message from another former runner. So I get this just yesterday. Hi, Barb. I just had to share this with you and let you know how much your energy and love and passion will show up in the world. The photo is of my son, most improved for XC in the state, among others. Also, my former runner won the Vermont State Meet and placed 13th in New England this past weekend. My runners go to CVU, whose girls have been to the state meet the past 3 years. Also, XC season always makes me think of you, and I just wanted to let you know I am sending love and hugs. So I told her how much I love her and how many memories I have of coaching her. I call her Devers, which is our nickname. She writes back and she said, thank you for your leadership, encouragement, and for empowering generations of women in sport. I miss your face. I wasn't clear about what happened to me in Bow when I first released the podcast episode about it, because Cadence was still a minor, still in school, I believe, and I just didn't feel it was appropriate It was too close. I have no trouble saying that what happened to me in Bow is disgusting, that there are good reasons to keep people away from kids. And I'm not somebody that needs to be kept away from kids. My track camp did not suffer. My school board relationships did not suffer. The people that supported this evil letter and the vitriol within it aren't people I need in my life anyway. It breaks my heart because I miss coaching and I miss running. Probably the last piece of fallout I'll share. So Allie, Jean Connolly's daughter, has been involved in coaching and is good friends with some of the middle school staff involved with Cadence. And I know that when this all came out, suddenly I had a complete knee-jerk separation from a couple of the people at my CrossFit gym that are friends with Allie, that have relationships to some people in Bow. When I was coaching in Bow, this woman had a job there and we worked out together at CrossFit, Laura Lynn. We were friendly, but she wasn't involved with the runners at Bow yet. She is now, which is great. She probably brings a lot to the program. What bothers me when people sever friendships with me is that it affects Gracie. So this girl, my CrossFit friend, has stepchildren and children, and Gracie and I were heavily involved with that family. Those kids came to track camp. I gave a scholarship one year, went out of my way. And now when those kids, they're young adults now, see me on the street, they flinch, they look away, they're incredibly uncomfortable. So clearly they've been told horrible things about me. And they no longer communicate with Gracie. No communication whatsoever. Allie and I had an understanding, especially when she would show up at the CrossFit gym with her boyfriend, who was a member of our gym. I ran into her at a wedding. And I remember standing up and looking across, and she was at the wedding, and I didn't realize we both knew the bride and the groom and the groom. And she just shot me this death look. And a little bit later at the reception, when I said hi to her her husband, he was really uncomfortable. I don't know why suddenly, but I'm blocked on everything. And when she sees me, she just glares. So she clearly has just this hatred for me. It irritates the crap out of me because it's completely inappropriate. If people have a problem with me, they need to say it. So part of my spilling the tea here, if this sounds a bit vindictive, I apologize. But I still have anger about it. MD's wife, who was a good friend of mine for years and did my hair for my wedding to Kenny, did my hair for Molly's funeral, hates me, just thinks I'm a disgusting human being and feels that MD was kind to me and nice to me and has only good things to say about me, which is baloney because he did not do one thing to defend what happened to me. He allowed the Monitor to write horrible newspaper articles about it. He allowed this letter to have credence. He did nothing to say, we take her side. He didn't. 35 girls, 45 girls, Cadence would be number 46, lost out on what was going to be an amazing season. And I'm confident enough in my abilities and know the depth of that team to know it would have been an insane state meet. It would have been incredible. And they will never have it. And that's that. I think I have packed up all my Bow cross-country stuff in a box and put it up in the attic. I was going to throw it all away. Maybe I did throw it away. Part of me hopes not because it's just a legacy. It's proof of my coaching and stuff. But yeah, it was pretty horrible, a pretty horrible time. Spilling the tea. That's what happened to me. And it reeks of the ugliness that my, separation from Concord wreaked. It's not right. I will own every bad thing I've done. I've owned a ton of bad things. I've been public about Roy. I've been relatively public about my struggles with addiction, as appropriately public as I can be. I own it. I own my actions. The final thing I will say is my opinion when you're working with students and athletes and children is that there has to be open communication and a wide balance and that we are not all the same. And when you get a narrow-minded group of people that have an agenda to push and want to hurt somebody, that's the group of people to ignore because they don't have credence sometimes in what they're saying. That's what I felt happened to me. And I see it a lot now. You just see it where you get a group of vocal parents that have an issue and they can push and wreak havoc sometimes in ways that are unhealthy. Was I inappropriate with Cadence? Perhaps. I got too close to her. But that's me. And I was reaching out and helping. I'll close by saying one of my biggest problems with any of these things is how they affect Gracie and how much it hurts her. Gracie wrote a heartfelt email, which I shared with MD and Dean Cascadden and Mr. O'Connell and MF and everybody. And she talked about all that she did to help Cadence, all the conversations and the texting and hanging out with her at meets and giving her advice. She talked about running into them at the beach and how they walked like 2 miles from where they were staying to say hi to Gracie at the beach and to say hi to me as well. Basically, Gracie says she called me her adopted sister and my mother her adopted mother, and that we understood her and helped her. Then she reports her for harassing, and I don't know what to think anymore. It really wrecked Gracie. And the treatment of these women to me now wrecks Gracie. So in summary, I will own my mistakes. I was too close. I didn't reach out for help soon enough. I didn't insist upon group meetings. I reached out to MD and Dean and a guy named Cliff Shaluta, who was the trainer, an email to all three of them asking for help, and never heard back from any of them. And I remember asking the trainer about it, and he said that MD would take care of it, and he never did. In my mind, they didn't want to take care of it. This was a great way to get me out. And maybe that sounds, like a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. But so all these years later, 6 years now, it still really hurts me and wrecks me. And it also encourages me to get back into running and start coaching again because I miss it and I'm good at it. Spill the tea, spill the tea. Tell the honest story. Am I a bit vindictive here? Am I a bit negative? Yes. So let me put in my forgiveness. I cannot hold a mentally unstable and emotionally shattered little girl accountable for a lot of these actions. I think she was played by her parents. I forgive her in my heart. While I do not have any love lost for Candice's dad, I choose to understand that he was coming from a place of protecting his daughter, or at least that's what he says. I have no patience for the behavior of the staff at Bo that took part in this. It's ugly and not at all what should represent, teachers and students. I have gratitude for the athletic department and the administration in Concord who supported me during this time. And we recently hired an athletic director. And for this specific experience, I was put on that committee. And it was incredibly helpful to the committee to hear what had happened to me and to make heartfelt decisions. I have gratitude for the district I represent now. I have incredible gratitude for the number of runners from Bo and Concord who continue to reach out to me to thank me for instilling in them a passion for running. Be good to yourself. Listen to your stomach. When you have a nudge in your tummy and you feel that you should do something, do it. Don't get stuck in the fawn and freeze mode like I do. I will not get stuck in that again. I'll open my mouth and blurt it out now before I'll try to appease the people that really want to hurt me. Be good to someone else. If you see someone struggling, help them out. Have an open mind to things that are different. And as always, have a good day, everybody. Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at barb_444, on Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.